Have you ever sent a message to an introvert and noticed that they took hours or even days to reply? Sometimes they read the message. Sometimes they even wanted to answer. But somehow, the response never came. And this is where misunderstandings begin. People may think they're being ignored. They may assume the introvert is no longer interested, is upset, or simply doesn't care enough to respond. But what if delayed replies are not always about a lack of interest? What if, for some introverts, replying to a message requires more emotional energy than most people realize? Today, we're talking about why introverts don't always reply right away and why silence doesn't necessarily mean rejection. Why can something as simple as answering a message feel so difficult for an introvert?
Because a message is not always experienced as just a message. For some introverts, receiving a text can immediately feel like the beginning of an interaction they have to maintain. They may read, "Hey, how are you?" But instead of answering quickly, their mind may start asking, "What should I say? How honest should I be? Will this conversation continue? What if they ask another question? Do I have the energy to keep talking right now?" The message itself may be short, but the mental process behind the answer can be much bigger.
So, the problem isn't necessarily the person who sent the message?
Exactly. It may not be about the sender at all. The introvert may genuinely like that person and still not have the energy to respond in the moment. A simple message can feel like an open door. And sometimes, they know that once they walk through that door, they'll be expected to stay in the conversation. When their energy is already low, even a small interaction can feel like more than they can handle.
Another thing people often notice is that introverts sometimes take a long time to answer even simple questions. Why is that?
Many introverts don't like responding mechanically. They may not want to send a quick, "haha, yeah," or "I'm fine," if that doesn't reflect how they actually feel. They may want to give a thoughtful answer. They want to understand the question, organize their thoughts, and choose the right words. That can take time.
So, sometimes they delay replying because they care about the conversation?
Yes. In some cases, the delay happens because they care too much about answering correctly. They may rewrite the message several times. They may worry that their tone sounds cold, strange, or too emotional. They might think, "Does this sound rude? Am I sharing too much? Should I explain more? Will they misunderstand me?" What looks like indifference from the outside may actually be overthinking. They are not always avoiding the conversation. Sometimes they are trying to participate in it in a way that feels authentic.
Let's talk about energy. Why can an introvert answer someone one day and then disappear the next?
Because social energy is not constant. An introvert may have a good day, feel rested, and genuinely want to talk. Then, after work, school, errands, or several social interactions, that energy can disappear. Their desire to connect may still be there, but their capacity is gone. That distinction is important. Someone can care about you and still not have the energy to talk to you right now.
So love and availability are not always the same thing?
Exactly. A person can love their friends, value their family, and appreciate someone deeply, and still need silence. Being emotionally connected to someone does not mean being available every minute of every day. For introverts, replying to messages can become difficult when their mind is overstimulated. They may need to reduce the number of voices, questions, and emotions entering their attention. Silence becomes a way to recover.
What happens when people send several follow-up messages asking, "Why aren't you answering?"
Sometimes the pressure makes the reply even harder. When an introvert already feels guilty for taking too long, a follow-up message can increase the emotional weight of the conversation. Now they are not only answering the original message, they also feel they have to explain the delay. They may think, "Now they're upset. I have to apologize. I need to explain everything. What if my explanation isn't good enough?" The longer they wait, the more complicated the reply feels.
That creates a kind of cycle, doesn't it?
Yes. They delay answering because they are tired. Then they feel guilty for delaying. Because of the guilt, the message becomes more difficult to answer. So they delay even longer. From the outside, it may look like they are intentionally ignoring someone. From the inside, it can feel like being emotionally stuck. This is why a calm and low-pressure message often works better than repeated demands for an immediate response. Something like, "No pressure. Just checking in when you have the energy." That kind of message communicates care without creating another obligation.
You mentioned that introverts sometimes need silence to be authentic. What do you mean by that?
Some introverts feel exhausted by the idea of constantly performing a social version of themselves. They may not want to pretend to be cheerful when they are overwhelmed. They may not want to respond with enthusiasm they don't currently feel. If they answer while emotionally exhausted, they may feel disconnected from their own words. So they wait until they can be more present.
But doesn't that sometimes hurt the other person?
It can. And this is where communication matters. Delayed replies can affect relationships. It is not helpful to pretend that nobody ever feels hurt by them. Introverts still have a responsibility to communicate their needs as clearly as possible. They can say, "I'm low on energy today, but I'll get back to you. I saw your message. I just need some quiet time. I'm not ignoring you. I'm taking a break from conversations." A short explanation can prevent a lot of unnecessary pain. The goal is not to force introverts to reply instantly. The goal is to help both people understand what is happening.
What should people remember when an introvert takes a long time to answer?
They should avoid immediately turning silence into a personal rejection. A delayed reply can mean many different things. They may be tired. They may be overwhelmed. They may be processing something privately. They may have read the message and forgotten to respond. They may want to answer properly but not have the energy yet. Of course, sometimes silence does mean that someone is losing interest. But it is not the only explanation. The healthiest approach is to look at the overall pattern. How does this person treat you in person? Do they show care in other ways? Do they eventually respond? Do they make an effort when they have the capacity? One delayed message should not automatically define the entire relationship.
What can introverts do if they know delayed replies are creating misunderstandings?
They can communicate before disappearing completely. They don't need to provide a long explanation. A simple message is often enough. For example, "I'm having a quiet day and may take a while to reply. I care about this conversation, but I don't have much social energy right now. I'll answer when I can give this my full attention." They can also avoid making promises they cannot keep. If they know they probably won't be available that evening, it may be better to say so honestly rather than say, "I'll reply soon," and then feel worse when they don't. And they can remember that needing space does not make them selfish. But needing space also does not mean they should expect everyone else to understand it without communication. Healthy boundaries become easier for others to respect when they are explained clearly.
So, the next time an introvert takes a while to reply, remember this. They may not be ignoring you. They may be managing their energy, organizing their thoughts, or trying to return to the conversation. And as their real self, a delayed response is not always a lack of love. Sometimes, it is simply a sign that their mind needs quiet before it can connect again.
And for introverts listening to this, remember that your need for space is valid. You do not have to be available all the time. But when you care about someone, a small explanation can help them understand that your silence is not rejection. You can protect your energy without making the people you love feel forgotten. Host, if this conversation felt familiar, subscribe to the channel. Here, we talk about introversion, deep thinking, emotional boundaries, and the quiet experiences that many people struggle to explain. And remember, they're not ignoring you. Sometimes, they're simply trying to find the energy to come back to themselves.